Welcome back, students. So now we are going to start next chapter, which is tissues, plant and animal tissues. So my dear students, if you remember in class 7th, your first chapter was about tissues, and if you are having the books with you, you can just recapitulate. This whole lesson is just a recapitulation of what we have studied earlier, but once again we will revise it thoroughly. So let us start. So we are going to start with chapter 3, tissues. So before we start, so you all have read, and now I suppose you know that how will you define tissues. Tissues is nothing but a group of cells which are similar in structure and they perform same kind of function. For example, one cell, and you all know that the living organisms are made up of multicellular. They are multicellular. They have various types of cells. Suppose this is the cells of which your skin is made up of, that is epithelial cells. So this forms the epithelium tissue. Epithelial tissue, if you remember, we have studied earlier also, right? Epithelial tissue. Then you have read that there are various types of muscles in your body. So all the muscles together will form what? Muscular tissue. You have also studied that there is neurons. Neurons are present which form the which tissue? They will form nervous tissue, right? Which have axons and dendrites. So similarly, tissues means a group of similar cells performing a specific function. So first of all, we will discuss about plant tissues. See, you have read earlier also that plant tissues we categorize into two major forms. One is meristematic, which is made up of the cells which are always in the state of division. They grow and regrow, divide, or you can say multiply, that is one and the same thing, to form new cells and thus help in growth. And second type of tissue is permanent, the cells which have stopped dividing or forming new cells and they have acquired a specific function. So when a plant is a small sapling, suppose this small sapling, a root and the stem which is growing. So at this time, this plant, every part of this plant is made up of meristematic tissue. Why? Because every part is developing meristematic cells, because all the cells they are dividing and they are forming new cells. So that is how the new branches are coming out, the leaves are coming out, the root is growing and the stem is growing upwards. Okay, but when the plants acquire a certain height according to its species, according to its variety, after that what have you observed? This plant has, for example, become a huge tree. Then you might have observed that what happens, suppose this is the actual height, that now the growth will occur only at particular points. One is the apex of the roots, wherever is the root tip, and the topmost branches. Or you must have seen that every year few leaves come up, new leaves come up, and new small buds and small branches which arise at the tips, and rest of the plant is same. So meristematic tissue is found at all growing points, wherever there are growing points, such as the tips of the roots and tips of the stems. This helps in elongation and formation of new cells wherever it is required. And secondly, it is also present as a lateral or cambium, like this is the bark, and then there will be phloem cells, then xylem cells, and inside there will be a layer of cambium cells. We also call it lateral meristem. Cambium. This helps the plant to attain girth. This helps the plant to slowly develop its diameter, or you can say develops its girth. Okay, so meristematic tissue is present at the tips, so it is called apical meristem, and one which is present inside the stem, inside, which helps in lateral growth, is called lateral meristem, or it is also known as cambium. Fine. So you can just refer your book and you can go through it. So I will not go into that much detail because we have already studied about this apical meristem, lateral meristem, cambium and all. Fine. Now the cells which have stopped dividing, what they become? Permanent tissue. Second type of tissue is permanent tissue. And we divide this permanent tissue into, according to the function, we divide it into three types. You have read Parenchyma, Collenchyma and Sclerenchyma. But now here we will study in a different kind of classification. We can divide the permanent cells as number 1, protective tissue. Second will be supporting, which helps in giving supporting tissue. And third will be conducting. Conducting means which help in transportation. You have read about xylem and phloem, that will form our conducting tissue. Supporting tissue which provides support to the plants, that will be your Parenchyma, Collenchyma and Sclerenchyma. And then protective tissue is some kind of cells or the tissues which help in general protection of the plant parts. This includes the cells which are present on the leaves. If you see the structure of the leaves, on the top of the surface there is a layer of cells. We call it epidermis, epidermal tissue. It protects the leaves and provides some kind of protection. So it is, what you need to study is their structure and their location where it is found and their function. Function is clear from the words, so you can just go through it again. See here, protective tissue, supporting and conducting, three kinds of permanent tissues. Protective tissue, it is present in the cells. It has cells with thick walls because it provides protection, and it is found on the surface of the roots, stems and leaves. And examples they have given, like epidermis of the leaves, that is the topmost layer of the leaves, which secretes a waxy waterproof material. You might, if you touch some of the leaves, you will find that the layer of the leaves is waxy and waterproof, and that is how they can withstand the water. And similarly, cork cells, that is the outermost covering of the plants, outermost covering, the bark, the cork cells, that also is made up of strong waterproof material. We call it which cells? Protective cells, or we can say protective tissue. Second type is supporting tissue. In supporting tissue, we have read the three types: Parenchyma, and these are the Parenchyma cells, Collenchyma and Sclerenchyma. So I will just revise it with you. Parenchyma cells we have studied earlier also, that it consists, the shape may be oval or polygonal, and there are intercellular spaces between them. This is the structure. Intercellular spaces, the space between the cells. Fine. And these cells, they contain a large, this is the vacuole. You have read that plant cell have a central large vacuole, and the nucleus is towards the periphery at one side. This is the nucleus. This is as you see under normal microscope. Okay. So these cells, their basic function is they provide, helps in storage of food and storage of water. Fine. And sometimes in some kind of parenchyma cells, they also store chloroplast or the grains of the chloroplast and help in photosynthesis. At that time, we can call them Sclerenchyma. This is parenchyma, but sometimes in the leaves, this parenchyma cells, they store in them chloroplast and help in photosynthesis. So we call them Sclerenchyma. You can see the picture. This is parenchyma cells, vacuole and the nucleus, and intercellular spaces is present. And if they store some granules of starch and also chloroplast, then we will call it Sclerenchyma. Chloros green, so it is called Sclerenchyma, and it helps to perform photosynthesis. Okay. The second type is, and it is where it is found, that you have to study the plant parts which contain parenchyma cells. It is present in the cortex, that is the outer region of the plant, and also in the center region. We call it pith. Later on you will study the detailed diagram, then you will come across all these words, what is cortex and pith. The outer region of the plant is called cortex and inside region is called the pith. Okay. Then next is Sclerenchyma cells. We have studied this also. These are somewhat elongated cells and there is no intercellular spaces, and at the corners elongated cells, and at the margins or at the corners the cells have specific chemical substances are deposited. That's deposition of lignin. You have read earlier also this word lignin, a type of complex chemical. It deposits at the edges and this makes it quite hard, and it is rigid also, and as well as it is little flexible also. Flexible, it provides flexibility. For example, the stalk of the leaf. For example, this is the stalk of the leaf and this is the leaf structure. So this stalk, this petiole, this is made up of Sclerenchyma cells, and it is hard also, and it can move up and down. It is little flexible also. Okay, so you can refer the diagram in your book. This is Sclerenchyma cells as they have shown. These are the depositions of lignin, and that's why the cell wall is thickened at the corners because of the deposition of some chemical substances. It is found in leaf stalks and below the epidermis of the stems. The third type was Sclerenchyma. This also you have studied. Sclerenchyma is the hardest of all these three. The cells are totally dead. When we say the cells are dead, it means that it lacks any kind of cell organelles. Even the nucleus is absent. These are thin, and if we see in the cross section, elongated cells, and there is a lot of deposition of chemical substances of lignin, maybe other also lignin, suberin, many kinds of chemical substances are deposited, and thus it makes the cells very, very thick, and they provide stiffness and help in providing stiffness to the cells. And you must have seen some of the hard structures, like suppose walnut, the outer covering of the walnut, the coconut shell, and the jute fibers. All those things are made up of Sclerenchyma fibers or Sclerenchyma cells. So we have three types of permanent cells which have taken up the function. Parenchyma, the main function is storage of food. Sclerenchyma, it provides stiffness as well as flexibility to the plants, and Sclerenchyma also provides strength. Fine, and it is found in the stems and the veins of the leaves. Okay, this is the structure as you see. This is longitudinal. If we cut and see Sclerenchyma cells, fine, the nucleus is absent, and this is the cross section. The third type of tissue is conducting tissue. First we have read protective tissue, the epidermis, present at the epidermis of the leaves, and second we have read supporting tissue, and now we have conducting tissue. It is also called vascular tissue, and you have read about xylem and phloem. They are called as conducting tissue. In class 8 you have read the 4 types of xylem cells and the 4 types of phloem cells. Xylem and phloem both form the vascular bundle, and we also call them conducting tissue because they conduct. They help in transportation. You all know that xylem conducts water and minerals from the roots to the entire part of the plant, and phloem conducts food which is synthesized in the leaves, from the leaves downwards to the each and every part of the plant, also upwards at the new upcoming cells or the branches or the leaves, okay, which are being formed. So food is provided by phloem, and xylem conducts water and minerals. So there are four types of xylem cells which form xylem tissue, and 4 types of phloem cells which form phloem tissue. You need to study the 4 types and their function can come, any of the functions. So first of all, let us come to xylem. So xylem cells are elongated and thick walled. These are somewhat in form of tubular passages. They provide, that upward movement of water and dissolved materials. Okay. So 4 types of xylem cells. These are the tracheids, vessels. If you remember good, otherwise you can just revise it once again. Tracheids and vessels together we call them tracheary elements, and xylem parenchyma and xylem fibers. Fine. Now let us study one by one. So the first one is tracheids. Tracheids are made up of elongated dead cells. Whenever they say dead cells, it is understood that nucleus is absent and there are large cavities without any contents, means without any protoplasm. Protoplasm is not present in the cells. The cells have become dead. Okay, so they have lignified walls, means their walls again provide strength. So they provide mechanical support by developing various types of thickenings in their walls. Thickenings can be of various kind of chemical substances. Okay, so tracheids. Then next is xylem vessels. They are also called tracheae. Don't get confused with tracheae and tracheids. Tracheids are dead cells and they have lost protoplasm and they provide mechanical support. Whereas tracheae is the other name of xylem vessels and they are basically tube-like structures. Actually, if we see them in transverse section, we find like this tube-like structures. And suppose this is one cell, elongated cells, another, then the other, like this. These are the side walls, okay, and the transverse walls in between these, they have dissolved, they get dissolved. So as a result, it becomes porous, means it has lost and everything, and it seems as if a pipe, a whole elongated conducting pipe is present inside the whole plant, and which helps in upward movement of water, continuous upward movement of water. Okay, and these are made up of elongated cells and they are basically meant for transporting water and dissolved minerals, and they are attached end to end. So you can see the figure here. Their walls are quite hard, thick and lignified. And the third type is xylem parenchyma. Whenever the name will come parenchyma, you should know that parenchyma cells, we have read, they have nucleus. They are the living cells. They are associated with xylem cells. Means along with xylem cells, some parenchyma cells are also present. So we will call them xylem parenchyma. And as you read earlier, that these cells help in storage of food and also help in conduction of water and minerals. So tracheids, xylem vessels, xylem parenchyma, and the last one is xylem fibers. Xylem fibers, these are made up of dead sclerenchyma. In xylem tissue, we have xylem parenchyma. Parenchyma means living cells. They will help in storage and they will also help in conduction of water and minerals. And when we talk about fibers, so you remember that these are made up of sclerenchyma cells, and you have already read sclerenchyma cells are dead. They have no protoplasm, they are thick walled and very narrow and tapering ends, and their main function is to provide mechanical support to the plant. So just as we have 4 types of cells in xylem tissue, so we have 4 types of cells in phloem tissue. The 4 types of phloem cells are sieve tubes, companion cells, phloem parenchyma, and phloem fibers. Like in xylem parenchyma and xylem fibers, so 2 are same, phloem parenchyma cells, which will again help in storage, and phloem fibers, they will provide strength. They will be made up of sclerenchymatous cells, and the phloem tissue, which helps in conduction of food, that is basically performed by sieve tubes. Sieve tubes, actually these are made up of again elongated cells. This is one cell, suppose, and then the another cell, and they also have the transverse walls, means the side walls of the cell walls, they have been dissolved and there are pores. They have become perforated. Perforated means having holes, and thus they help in conduction of food. Continuously the food can be conducted from, like a whole continuous layer, the food can be conducted from leaves to the entire part of the plant. Okay, and these are associated with another type of cells. We call them companion cells. This is companion cells. So phloem consists of sieve tubes, which help in conduction of elongated cells, which help in conduction of food, and it is associated with some cells, we call them companion cells. They take care of these sieve tubes and also help in conduction. Fine. Sieve tubes made up of elongated cells. They are placed end to end like a long tube, and transverse walls are perforated, have holes, spaces, and they help in transport of food from leaves to storage organs. Companion cells, they are made up of living parenchyma and they are closely associated. See the diagram. This is figure. This is the sieve cells and these are the perforated plates. We call them sieve plates. Okay, and this is the companion cells made up of which type of cells? Phloem parenchyma, living cells. Fine. They help in functioning of the sieve tube cells. Then phloem parenchyma is parenchymatous tissue. Again, it is associated with phloem, and since it is parenchyma, so again the function will be storage of starch, fats and other food products. And phloem fibers, whenever the name will come fibers, you should know that fibers are made up of sclerenchymatous cells and they are found associated with phloem. They will mainly provide support. They help in support. So xylem and phloem collectively, you have read that they are called vascular bundles. Vascular bundles. And also known as conducting tissue. The veins of leaves are the examples. Veins of leaves. If you remember that the structure of leaf, this is the midrib and these are called the veins. These are the veins. It can be of reticulate and parallel venation that you will read later on. So all these veins, they are made up of xylem and phloem both. So we call it vascular bundles. They are in continuity with conducting tissues of stem and root. Fine. Now let us go through the progress check. What are the two basic types of plant tissues? Again, now you revise it and let me know. Meristematic tissue and permanent tissue. Next question is, give the technical terms for the following. The category of plant tissues that have their ability to multiply. Which cells have the ability to multiply? Meristematic cells. The kind of plant cells with thin walls, usually single large vacuole. The answer will be parenchyma. Elongated cells which are thickened at corners. This is collenchyma. Then the two types of tissues which provide upward movement of water and dissolved materials from the roots. Upward movement of water and materials, that is xylem cells. So which two types? You have to mention the particular names. So you have to write xylem vessels and second is xylem parenchyma. Xylem vessels or tracheae and xylem parenchyma. Then mention if the following are false or true. Phloem cells carry manufactured food from leaves to other plants. True. Veins of leaves have both xylem and phloem. True. The older xylem tissue does not participate in transport. That is also true. The sclerenchyma consists of active dividing cells. False. It consists of dead cells. Thank you. The next topic we will study in the next video.